Hi, my name is Patrick Reagan. Welcome to the operating system Linux, where we cover how to install, manage, and use the Linux operating system. In Part 6, Configuring Linux Networking focuses on using GNOME settings to configure networking and configure networking via the command line. Lastly, it will cover the commands used to troubleshoot networking. For those who are going to take the A+ exam, there are questions at the end of the video. If you open the System menu, you can click Wired or Wireless to connect or disconnect the network connections. If you click the greater than for wired or wireless, you can click Wired Settings or Wireless Settings. Network settings can also be accessed through GNOME Settings. To configure the specific connection, click the gear button for the connection. The Details tab will show you the link speed, IP version 4 address, IP version 6 address, hardware or MAC address, the default route or gateway, and the DNS server. The Identify tab allows you to rename the link, change the MAC address if it's allowed, clone the MAC address, and to configure their MTU. MTU is short for Maximum Transmission Unit. The default standard value is 1500 bytes. It's best to keep this as automatic. The IP version 4 tab allows you to configure the IP version 4 method. Typically, the IP version 4 method would be automatic DHCP or manual. If you configure the IP version 4 method to manual, you can then configure IP address, netmask, gateway, and DNS servers. If you're going to configure DNS and routes, don't forget to toggle off the automatic options. You can also configure routes, which you would only use if your network has more than one local gateway. This feature would be typically used on servers. The IP version 6 tab allows you to configure the IP version 6 method. Typically, the IP version 6 method will be automatic DHCP or manual. If you configure the IP version 6 method to manual, you can then configure IP address, netmask, gateway, and DNS servers. If you're going to configure DNS and routes, don't forget to toggle off the automatic options. You can also configure routes, which will only use if your network has more than one local gateway. This feature would typically be used on servers. 802.1x security is a way of controlling access to a logical network from a physical one by requiring a client to authenticate with the server when connecting to a router, switch, or wireless access point. To connect, you'll have to use the correct 802.1x authentication method. 802.1x helps prevent unauthorized users from connecting to a network. Traditionally, to see your IP configuration, you would execute the following command, ifconfig. However, the ifconfig command is being deprecated. If the ifconfig command is not found, you may need to install the nettools using the following command, sudo apt install nettools. Instead of ifconfig, you would use the following command to view IP addresses including broadcast address, IP A. To see the default gateway, you would execute one of the following commands, IP route, netstat-r-n. To see the routing table, you would execute the following command, IP route-n. The G represents the gateway. To see the DNS servers, we'd use the cat/etc/resolve.conf, nmcli dev show grep ipv4.dns, or resolve.ctl status. If you have a system that does not have DHCP server, you have to modify the /etc/network/interfaces file with a text editor such as Nano. The first screenshot shows if you're using DHCP to configure the IP configuration. The second screenshot shows if you're manually configuring the IP configuration. To configure DNS resolution by specifying DNS servers to use, you would modify the /etc/resolve.conf file with a text editor such as Nano. You would then reboot your computer with the Reboot Now command or restart the networking service with one of the following commands: /etc/inetd/networking restart, /itc/inetd/network restart, or systemctl restart network. If you don't know which command to use, you may need to use your browser and search engine to determine the correct command. After you log in with the root account, or an account that has administrative access to the computer, you can change to the /etc/network directly and use Nano to open the interfaces file. After you make the changes, you would use the Control X to exit Nano. It would ask if you want to save the changes where you respond with the Y for yes. You would press Enter to keep the same name. To see the contents of the file, you can use the cat command. You could also do the same with the /etc/resolve.conf file that configures the DNS servers. For the changes to go in effect, you restart the network services or reboot the computer. When troubleshooting networking issues, you can review the current configuration, use the IP command and the graphical interface. You can use the ping command to test connectivity. Ping DNS name or ping IP address. Use the traceroute to test connectivity while showing the hops to get to the target. Traceroute DNS name or traceroute IP address. Different from Windows, you must spell out traceroute. Use NSLOOKUP to test name resolution. To show the IP address used by the computer, you can use the CompTIA A command. To show the default gateway, you would use the IP route command. You can use ping to show connectivity to an IP address or DNS name. You must use Control-C to stop the ping command. By pinging a DNS name, you are also testing name resolution. The traceroute command will show the path to a target and the hops it takes to get to that target. You can use the cat command to show the content of the resolve.conf file, and then you can use NSLOOKUP to specifically test name resolution. Question. In Linux with a graphical interface, what is the easiest way to configure IP address, subnet mask, and default gateway? Answer. Use GNOME settings. Question. Which tab in GNOME network settings would you use to configure 802.1x? Answer. Security. Question. What command would you use on the newest version of Linux to see the IP address and related configuration? Answer. IP-A. Question. Which file do you need to configure network IP configuration if you do not have the graphical interface for Linux? Answer. /etc/network/interfaces. Question. What command would you use in Linux to test connectivity to a client? Answer. Ping. Question. In Linux, what command would you use to show the route of a packet to get to the target host? Answer. Traceroute. For more information, visit these sites. In summary, if you open a system menu and you click wired or wireless to connect or disconnect the network connections. If you click the greater than sign for wired or wireless, you can click wired settings or wireless settings. Network settings can also be accessed through GNOME settings. Traditionally, to see your IP configuration, you can execute the following command, ifconfig. Instead of ifconfig, we'd use the following command to view the IP addresses, including the broadcast address, IP-A. To see the default gateway, you would execute one of the following commands, iproute or netstat-r-n. If you have a system that does not have a DHCP server, you would modify the /etc/network/interfaces file with a text editor such as Nano. Use the ping command to test connectivity and the traceroute to test connectivity while showing the hops to get to the target. Thank you for watching this video. The next video will be Linux, Part 7, Linux Disk and File System. Thank you.